Come on, honey.
16.
Yeah. Forecast.
Afternoon, everyone. Hope you survived Snowzilla adequately. Crowd's a little smaller today. Maybe people are still trapped, but hope everyone's doing all right. I wanted to begin today with a statement from the Secretary regarding Afghanistan. Again, from Secretary Carter. I want to thank General John Campbell for his extraordinary leadership and dedication in his dual role as Commander of United States Forces Afghanistan and as Commander of the NATO Resolute Support Mission. While many challenges remain, we have made gains over the past year that will put Afghanistan on a better path, and much of the credit for that progress rests with General Campbell. Under General Campbell's leadership, our forces have engaged in two important and enduring missions: our train, advise, and assist support to the Afghan security forces, and our counterterrorism effort. General Campbell has taken the fight to al-Qaeda and made clear our resolve to deny it safe haven. He has consistently identified ways to increase the capability and capacity of the Afghan forces that have shown the motivation and resiliency required to ensure the long-term success of our partnership and the security and the stability of the Afghan people deserve. General Campbell has presided over important milestones in our mission to enable the ANDSF, including the recent delivery of the A-29s to the Afghan military to provide close air support, which will be a key element in increasing superiority over Taliban forces. He has also forged strong partnerships with the Afghan Unity Government led by President Ghani and Chief Executive Abdullah, and it is clear that we have strong partners with a common vision focused on a secure and prosperous future for the Afghan people. For nearly 18 months, General Campbell has given his all to the mission as our top commander in Afghanistan, and his personal sacrifices on behalf of his troops and the Afghan people will be remembered by us all. As his tour in Afghanistan comes to a close, I want to personally thank him for everything he has done to bring us to this moment in Afghanistan and for all that he has done throughout his extraordinary career. There will be more to say about his future in the coming days. The good news is that we have a deep bench. I am absolutely confident in the man the President intends to nominate to take General Campbell's place when his work in Afghanistan is completed. Lieutenant General John Mick Nicholson is an accomplished soldier with extensive command experience both in Afghanistan and around the world. He has led soldiers at all levels, from platoon to division, in airborne, ranger, mechanized, striker, and light infantry units in 5 different infantry divisions and the 75th Ranger Regiment. He commanded the 82nd Airborne Division, reestablishing global response force capabilities, and commanded NATO's Allied Land Command. He knows what it means to lead a responsive and nimble force and how to build the capacity of our partners to respond to immediate and long-term threats and remain adaptable to confront evolving challenges. And he understands the importance and complexity of our mission in Afghanistan, having served in multiple capacities, including Chief of Staff of Operations for the International Security Assistance Force, ISAF, and U.S. Forces Afghanistan, Director of the Pakistan-Afghanistan Coordination Cell for the Joint Staff, and Deputy Commander Stability of ISAF Regional Command South. I am confident that General Nicholson will build upon General Campbell's hard work to secure a bright future for the Afghan people and help the government of Afghanistan strengthen a professional and capable security partner to the American people. I also wanted to update you as well on the Secretary's visit to Cybercom earlier today. The Secretary and Chairman Dunford visited U.S. Cyber Command, or Cybercom, at Fort Meade, Maryland this morning. They discussed a range of cyber-related topics with the leadership there, including the latest on efforts to degrade ISIL's messaging campaign. As the Secretary made clear in his remarks to the 101st Airborne at Fort Campbell and in his speech and meetings with allies last week in Paris, our effort to accelerate the campaign to deliver a lasting defeat to ISIL includes targeting their use of the Internet to spread their message of hate, recruit fighters, and inspire acts of terror. Cybercom is charged with supporting our interagency partners in our whole-of-government effort to counter ISIL messaging, in addition to several other vital aspects of the counter-ISIL campaign. Secretary was able to engage directly with some of the men and women directly engaged in cyber operations. He encouraged them and the entire Cybercom team to do what they can to intensify the fight against ISIL. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions. Jamie.
Peter, I want to ask you about the possibility of the U.S. expanding its counter-ISIL efforts into Libya. The chairman traveling in Europe this week said that it was fair to say that the U.S. needed to take decisive military action, he said, in conjunction with political events in Libya. Can you help us understand what he's talking about and what's under consideration in terms of expanding efforts against ISIL into Libya?
Well, as the chairman has discussed, as the secretary has spoken on numerous occasions, including just last week in our visit to Paris and our meetings with other members of the ISIL coalition, we are extremely worried about the metastasis of ISIL to other locations, Libya being just one of those locations. We continue to monitor the situation there, continue to work very closely with our coalition partners, with others in the region who have similar concerns about the situation in Libya. And I think it's fair to say that we're closely monitoring the situation, as Chairman Dunford has indicated, working with those partners, and also continuing to have conversations with people on the ground as to exactly what's happening there and the threat that ISIL poses to the United States and others.
Could we see an expansion in Libya that looks something like what's going on in Iraq and Syria? That is to say, more consistent airstrikes and even possibly some limited ground actions? We've
shown in the past a willingness to strike in Libya. We've taken out a key ISIL leader in Libya in the past. But I think, Jamie, it's too soon to say at this point exactly where things will evolve. We're taking a very close look at this situation again. It's not just the United States that's involved here, that has a stake in what happens in Libya. We're continuing, of course, through the State Department to support the effort to forge a government in Libya. And we think that's a critical step in terms of the governance of the country to trying to address the ISIL threat as well. It's not just a military solution here, but we're going to continue to monitor it. And as Chairman Dunford indicated, we see this threat in ISIL as a serious threat, and we're going to continue to monitor the situation and consider what options we have moving forward.
Chairman Dunford seemed to indicate that those options might be presented to the President in, I think he said, in a matter of weeks. So are we talking about seeing some significant stepping up of the operations against Libya in a matter of weeks?
I think we're going to continue to assess the threat in Libya and respond accordingly. And the Chairman and the Secretary will continue to have those conversations with the President's National Security Team and with our partners as well as we assess the threat in Libya. Jennifer.
Can you rule out U.S. boots on the ground going to Libya? Is that under discussion?
You know the situation right now. We've had acknowledged that there have been some U.S. forces in Libya trying to establish contact with forces on the ground so that we get a clearer picture of what's happening there. But beyond that, again, we're going to consider all of our options going forward. Right now, that's not something that's under consideration.
Can you help me understand, twice this week, Ash Carter told CNN and CNBC, gave the impression that U.S. boots on the ground are on their way to Iraq and possibly Syria. He told CNN, I just went to Fort Campbell, headquarter of 101st Airborne. They're going to be the next unit going into Iraq, whole division. This is your mission, to get the Iraqis positioned. Is that hazardous? Boots on the ground? Yeah. That led to some confusion. Did he mean to say that a division of the 101st was going to Iraq?
The deployment of the 101st, it's been scheduled for some time. They're rotating in to replace existing forces on the ground. So hopefully there isn't any confusion there.
It's not a whole division, it's a brigade.
It's, my understanding, it's about 1,800 troops that will be moving in, and as the Secretary acknowledged to those troops, they have an important mission to carry out. It's been planned for some time. It's going to be the same mission that's being conducted right now by the 82nd Airborne, and they have a critical role to play going forward, and I think the Secretary was making the point that those forces, while they're on the ground in Iraq, trying to again enable Iraqi security forces to move forward, will be at risk, will be in harm's way, and I think that was the point he was trying to make in that conversation.
Is there any change to their mission in terms of, will they be closer to the front lines? Will they be embedded if the Mosul operation begins? Is there any change to their mission?
Their mission will be the same as the mission that for the forces that they're replacing. And this is, again, an effort to enable those Iraqi security forces, as U.S. trainers were able to do with Iraqi security forces that successfully took back those parts of Ramadi. We were looking for much the same thing out of these forces. And they, I can tell you from our travel to Fort Campbell and our conversations with them, are are ready for this mission. They understand the importance of this mission, and they will play a critical role in enabling those Iraqi security forces as they move towards their next targets, including ultimately Mosul.
And can I just shift to China for a moment? Secretary Kerry is over in China today, and he was quoted in talking about the disputed islands in the South China Sea. He was quoted saying, "Let me emphasize again, the United States does not take sides on the sovereignty questions underlying the territorial disputes in the South China Sea." That's a very different tone than what we've heard from this building. Secretary Carter has said that they, will continue to fly over the disputed islands, and in fact, there's been a lot more said that suggests that we do actually take sides on this issue. So how do I understand this?
I think, Jennifer, careful reading of the Secretary's comments on this topic, including when we were in the region, he's been very clear, and I think you can look at his testimony as well. We don't take sides in terms of these disputes. We encourage a diplomatic resolution of these disputes. But what he said is that efforts to reclaim these areas and to militarize these disputed islands is counterproductive to the effort to try and get a final resolution. And in the meantime, the United States will continue to be a force for stability in the region, and we're going to continue to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows. But we don't take sides in these disputes, whether it's disputes involving China or other players in the region. Paul.
Peter, going back to Libya for a second, are there currently U.S. forces on the ground there?
I'm not going to tell you exactly what the disposition of our forces are there. I can acknowledge that we've had forces on the ground previously, as we've indicated, to engage in conversations with local forces to get a clearer picture of exactly what's happening there.
And can you give us a greater sense of what that discussion with local forces is? Is that preparing to organize the kinds of militias that we could work with? Is it meeting with political leaders to get a sense of who supports whom? I mean, it sounds as though it's a very complicated picture with dozens, if not hundreds, of different kinds of militias. What exactly is the U.S. doing?
It is a complicated picture, and I think you've characterized pretty well what the goal would be, and that is to simply get a better sense of who the players are, who might be worthy of U.S. support and support from some of our partners going forward in the fight against ISIL. It is a complicated picture, and that's why the formation of a government is so central to the future for Libya and to also addressing the issue of ISIL in Libya. And so part of the reason for the presence of those troops is to, again, get a sense of the forces on the ground, the players on the ground, and exactly what's happening, because it is a muddled picture right now. That's one of the best ways we can get a better sense of what's happening.
Have they come to any conclusions on the kinds of forces that we could work with?
I think they've provided valuable information, and again, there's a big picture here. There are lots of players involved. There are also a lot of foreign partners that we have who are providing us critical information about what's happening in Libya, and we'll continue to work closely with them. It's not the only way we're getting information on the ground.
Going back to Jamie's question, I realize that ISIS is an issue in many countries beyond Iraq and Syria, but Libya, as we understand, is the only place where they're exercising active command and control. And I wonder, given Chairman Dunford's comments, given Secretary Carter's comments, is Libya getting a greater priority, a greater sense of urgency in the anti-ISIL fight than other countries?
Well, I think we've acknowledged the threat posed by ISIL as it metastasizes, and Libya is clearly a place where we've seen movement of ISIL forces, of ISIL members, if you will. And so clearly it's a significant concern for us. I'm not going to say it's more of a concern than other countries at this particular point, but we have seen an increase in ISIL members, ISIL-affiliated groups, if you will, in Libya, and that's a cause for concern. And as a result, we're doing everything we can to monitor that situation, work with our partners, try and get a better fix on what's happening, and again, consider our options going forward. Aaron.
Domestic question for you. Can you confirm the Secretary is going to brief the budget on February 2nd and maybe give us a preview of the preview?
I can confirm that the Secretary will have something to say about the budget on February 2nd. Yes, but I can't give you more details than that. And he'll make those comments here in Washington. So, Barbara.
Can we go back to Libya again? My memory may be very faulty on this. I recall, I think it was a couple of months ago, there was a photo that emerged that was acknowledged of some U.S. troops that appeared in Libya, and it was said at the time that they were asked by local militia to please leave the area, and they did leave, they did not stay. And I acknowledge my memory may be faulty. That is the only instance I recall. Is what you're saying today the first time the Defense Department is now openly acknowledging that U.S. Special Forces have gone in on the ground in Libya to establish contact with local groups? Because I don't recall, other than that photo, and my memory may be faulty. So is this your first time you're saying this?
I don't know if it's the first time we've said it as a building, but I've just acknowledged, I think, what we've said previously, that there have been U.S. personnel there doing exactly what I described, trying to get a better sense of the picture there.
They have gone in, I believe, in Tripoli, but you seem to be indicating that it's much more of an enduring mission than just go. So help us understand, if you could, what the task and mission of these U.S. Special Forces is.
There have been U.S. personnel in Libya, as I described, at the concurrence of Libyan officials in an effort to try and explore relationships, to get a better sense of what's happening on the ground in Libya. And again, we've acknowledged this in the past. Small group, and they're trying to get a clearer picture of what's happening there, and they've made contact with people on the ground to try and get a better sense of not only the threat that ISIL poses there, but the dynamic on the ground in terms of the security situation. We're looking for partners who can give us a better sense of the security situation, and it's not just the United States, of course, that has a keen interest here, Barbara. It is our foreign partners as well, and likewise, they've been able to provide us a significant amount of information as to what's happening in Libya. And again, cause for concern for us, and that's why I think you've heard from Chairman Dunford, Secretary Carter. We've been very upfront that this is a situation that does cause us concern, and we're considering what our options might be going forward should that threat, ISIL, become an even bigger threat from Libya.
So you, just to clarify, they are U.S. military personnel. These are not just random government employees. These are U.S. military personnel you're referencing.
U.S. military personnel.
And you are also acknowledging that you are working on, you just said options, so you're acknowledging you are indeed then working on military options to deal with ISIS in Libya.
We're taking the appropriate steps along with our partners to assess the threat that ISIL may pose in Libya, and obviously looking at the security situation there and doing everything we can separately. Very important, Barbara, the diplomatic side of this, the formation of a central government in Libya, critically important to the future of that country, of course, and to trying to stabilize the security situation.
But you said options, and since you're the Defense Department spokesman, you are talking
military.
I just need to make sure I understood accurately. You're talking from your podium.
Yes, we're looking at military options, a range of other options as a government that we can engage in to try and, as the situation in Libya unfolds, we want to be prepared, as the Department of Defense always wants to be prepared in the event that ISIL in Libya becomes more of a threat than it is even today.
And can I just follow up also on Mosul, if I might? So the Secretary is going to have this meeting with the allies to talk about getting increased contributions. Mm-hmm. To what extent, and I think Colonel Warren referenced, you're looking in particular at Mosul coming down the road and the need for 8 trained Iraqi brigades. So how much of this meeting he is going to have focuses, and why, on trying to get the Persian Gulf and the Middle East allies to contribute to get the Iraqi forces ready for a fight to take Mosul? How much of the meeting focuses on that?
Well, I think the Secretary has made clear that he's looking for contributions from as many contributors as possible, as many countries that are engaged in the campaign, including those perhaps that aren't engaged in the campaign at all right now. So he doesn't want to single out any particular group here, but he thinks there's plenty of contributions that can be made. And it's not just, Barbara, in the training, if you will, of those 8 brigades, there are a whole host of other things that need to be done in the counter-ISIL fight, and what the Secretary and his partners at the table in Paris have said about doing is to identifying the key capabilities that are going to be needed going forward in the fight against ISIL. Again, it's not just training forces. It could involve additions to the air campaign. It could involve logistical support. It could involve the training of police. There are a whole host of things that countries could do as part of this effort. ISR is another example where countries could step up and do more.
And not hypothetically, because as you say, many of them are doing nothing. So if the status quo continues, what is the general range of additional U.S. personnel that are needed for Iraq to be ready for Mosul?
I think the Secretary, again, this is a coalition. We have 26 nations plus Iraq in Brussels. We have seen great contributions from many members of that coalition. The Secretary believes that more can be done, that more can be offered towards this effort, that there should be no free riders, in his words. And we'll see what comes out of Brussels. But this is an ongoing conversation, and I think at this point we remain optimistic that there will be additional contributions from foreign partners that will enable this effort to move forward. In the meantime, the United States is going to continue to do what it's been doing, and we are the leader of this coalition right now and contributing the most to it at this point. We're going to continue to do what we're doing to push this, to accelerate this effort along with the help of our partners.
So how many more U.S. troops are needed?
I think you know where we are right now. We're about 3,700 U.S. troops right now in Iraq, and that's the level right now that the Secretary feels is the appropriate level. And if he feels like he needs to request more, then he's prepared to do that. It depends on the circumstances going forward, and if unique capabilities need to be brought into the fight. But that's where we are right now, and that's part of, again, that's a calculated assessment of what this campaign needs at this moment, particularly from the U.S. side. But if the Secretary has said, if he sees an opportunity for us to be able to do more, and it requires additional U.S. forces, he's prepared to make that request, but he doesn't have a pending request right now. Yes?
Peter, I want to go back to Libya. You said that, just to make it clear, you said that now the Pentagon is evaluating the options, the military options to deal with ISIS threat inside Libya. Is that correct?
We're always reviewing our options with regard to Libya and a whole host of other challenges facing the United States.
And what about, if you could clarify, the size of the U.S. force, the military personnel who worked in Libya before, or
Yes.
what's the status?
We're talking a small number of military personnel. I'm not going to get into the disposition right now of those forces, but we've indicated before there was a small group there to meet a diverse range of groups to get a better sense of what's happening on the ground.
When you say small group, this is 10?
I'm going to leave it
in
at
the
that.
hundreds?
This is a small group, Joe. I'm going to leave it at that. Yes, Austin.
Peter, at Fort Campbell, in his prepared remarks, the Secretary once again knocked Congress for holding up the last $49 million in Syria train and equip funds. Have there been any updates on that in terms of briefings to answer Congress's questions? And at this point, have there been any real-world consequences for not having that money?
Austin, let me take that question to give you a definitive update as to where the money stands. And my understanding is that last check there was still some money being held up, if you will. It had not been released fully. And I think in terms of real-world consequences, the Department, the Secretary believes that money could be well used in this effort to take the fight to ISIL. And so we'll continue our efforts to work with Congress to try and free up those funds.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Gordon.
Two questions.
Everyone knows who you are, Gordon, so there's no need.
Except for you today. When we were with Secretary Carter in Afghanistan in December,
Yeah.
he hinted, talking to troops, about a longer-term mission for troops in Afghanistan. Okay, and then we see these reports, or the report today, about rethinking the idea of an exit strategy altogether. Can you respond to this notion that the current plan, which will withdraw most of the troops, I believe, by the end of the year, or whatever it is now, is being rethought. And I have a second question, unrelated, which is the Turks had proposed to Chairman Dunford a kind of a new T&E program, slightly more limited, for folks inside Syria to be trained somewhere else and then brought back into Syria. Has the Secretary received that, any recommendation on that yet? And what's
I know that this topic came up previously. The Secretary, I'm not aware of any specific action or review that the Secretary's conducted yet that I can share with you at this point. On your first question, there's no change right now to the number of U.S. forces and the current plan in place. 9,800 U.S. troops being reduced down, ultimately to 5,500. The pace of that will be determined by commanders on the ground, and there's been no change to that. Obviously, we're going to continue to assess the security situation in Afghanistan. Secretary's going to continue to listen very carefully to General Campbell on his assessment of what's happening in Afghanistan, but as of now, there's no change in that plan.
We've got several months to go before the end of the year, but is there a point at which a decision would have to be made on not starting to draw down the 9,800 to the 55?
Again, this will be determined by commanders on the ground. I think everyone's looked at the situation, understands what that endpoint is scheduled to be at this moment, and is confident that we can get there if necessary. And again, if there needs to be a review, a reassessment, that'll be done in coordination with the commanders on the ground, of course, the Secretary engaging with the national security team at the White House as well. Louis.
Clarification. In the nomination for General Nicholson, is he being nominated for a 4th star, or is this going to be a 3-star command?
My understanding, this will be a 4th star.
There's been a development in South America with the Zika virus that is drawing concern. Last night, the president had a meeting with his healthcare leadership and also national security leaders, Deputy Defense Secretary Work was there. What is the role that the U.S. military or the Pentagon is being asked to play as part of this health initiative to try to prevent the spread of this disease?
My understanding is we've been asked, and again, the Deputy Secretary was at the White House yesterday. We've been asked to support Health and Human Services in their efforts to convene experts and stakeholders, specifically in the research area. This is an area where the DoD has done some research in the past, and I think some of that expertise will be brought to this effort, and we'll be supporting HHS in whatever way we can.
Is there any consideration to an initiative similar to what happened with Ebola, where the U.S. military played a role in containing that disease in Africa?
I don't think anyone is talking about that kind of role at this particular time. So this is a support role, again, sharing our research knowledge as much as anything else with the folks at HHS. Okay? Jennifer.
Why haven't we heard from the 10 sailors who were held by Iran overnight? Do you have any plans to allow them to take questions?
I'll refer you to the Navy as to exactly what stage they are. My understanding is the reintegration process has been completed, and I'll leave it to the Navy. I know that the Navy investigation is still ongoing as to exactly what took place, and I think that could be a determination, could be a factor in exactly their status at this point and whether or not they might be made available for media interviews.
And does the Secretary have any reaction to the CBS report last night on the Wounded Warrior Project and how money has been wasted that was raised to help wounded warriors, up to $1 billion? Any reaction to that?
To be honest, Jennifer, I didn't see the report myself. I'm not sure if the Secretary did. We'll obviously look into it. The Secretary would obviously be concerned about any report of malfeasance in this sort of area, but we didn't see the report, so let me take a look and find out if the Secretary saw it himself. Okay. All set? Thanks, everyone.